I'd like to pick up for 1 second what we were talking about, since we brought it up in some detail tonight, or expanded on it with Kyrute about the matter of destinations and journeys, and how it applies to man's, what we've been calling a secondary world, his intellectual world, a singular, unique sphere of human existence here on this planet. And I had used examples as far-ranging but still somewhat too akin, to leave it that, from soothsayers and astrologers to weather forecasters. But picking out the easy and obvious examples, such as me pointing out, asking first, if you recall last time, the rhetorical kind of question is, how can you explain the fact that man will continue to go to soothsayers, to astrologers, to priests, or buy books predicting the future, and they do not work, and why there are not men just in an uproar? Of course, you ordinary people should not be, you unordinary people should not be looking for a way out of anything. When you begin to hear something extraordinary, not just from me, but when you begin to think or to hear something that causes you to neuralize in an extraordinary way, you should not, of course, be looking for a way out. You should be looking for a way further in, like how is it more connected, rather than trying to find any kind of exception, because you could take anything said and find an exception. I can do it. As you know, I can play both parts. But not to leave it at those, what you could, if you're ordinary, that you could discount as saying, well, I don't believe in fortune telling, and it can be explained scientifically why you can't predict the weather, and I don't see the point. There are other very down-to-earth, immediate secondary examples, such as the ones I didn't point out. I just wanted you to realize, don't look for a way out if you're trying to learn how to think in a fresh way. Brokers. Get down to the nitty-gritty, the seriousness, that you can be a good, first-class, educated atheist and have no interest in forecasting, soothsaying, but everybody's interested in the secondary world, and what? Perhaps, as Kyrute pointed out, the primo example, the most exemplary, walking, living manifestation of the secondary world, which is money, as Kyrute described it. A thing of absolutely no intrinsic value that everybody wants. So take the idea, just so that you won't try and weasel out if you're ordinary, brokers, because everybody knows this. It's as good as the old one of the farmer's cow, who by the swing of his tail or her tail can predict the weather better than the National Weather Service. Everybody knows that. Everybody, if you ever watch TV, if you watch it once or twice, you must know it. And yet they still have weather forecasters. And also, as often, at least once a year, surely, even on national network news, they'll do one on brokers. The world of finances and just a little human interest. They got a minute to fill up, and they'll show that the janitors there at NBC or somewhere has put up a dartboard. You all know it, with the stock report from last week, and they throw darts, and they do better normally than brokers, financial advisors. It's a known fact. And yet these people, they're not down in house trailers and name Chief Wamahaka or Madam Maggie. These guys are dressed up in suits. Some of them got degrees on the wall, and they charge you for for handling your account, for giving you advice. You go in and you have to make an appointment. And you have to go in and sit down. You have to take a shower and clean up. And they give you advice. And the advice sucks. I hate to get technical. Well, I may not be technical because I didn't major in economics. But it is, if you know anything, you just know it's a fact that it is absolutely unreliable. Throwing darts, flipping a coin is a safer way to guide your financial investments. It's a known fact. But does that stop the business? Not hardly. I just wanted you to see that there are examples everywhere, or the whole field of economics itself, that they continue. So it's not just the crude physical aspect of trading in the financial markets. It is at an academic level, in the same general vicinity, the world of economics. They will, on national TV or local TV or your newspapers, they will periodically drag out the head of the economics department at your local university. And they will say, well, what do you make of the most recent figures from last quarter, that the upturn and the number of building permits here in our state has increased 0.72%. And so, well, that obviously shows, and he'll say so-and-so. And if you got any sense whatsoever, you know it's meaningless. You might as well be listening to them to review the latest movie if you're taking that as serious information, and everybody knows it's not serious. So the point is, if you were taking if you're ordinary and being sarcastic and following this, and you took the view I just wanted you to see all the way from soothsayers, which you could easily dismiss if you're ordinary, but into the area of high finances, wherein those involved actively, academically, and pragmatically are of high degrees of education. Not people given over to voodoo, over to superstition. Men who trained in it, and they've got the same degree at best of accuracy and reliability as Madam Maggie does down the house trailer reading cards. So, if you get past the point of, yeah, you're right, the whole world is crazy. Well, no, it's not crazy, unless you are. But the question is, how does this survive? That everything going on in the secondary world, once you see it from a view, without taking any of the examples, I'm just trying to wrap up and pull in as many as possible so that you couldn't weasel out theoretically. The secondary world, if it had a name, would be unreliable. That is not negative. I just wanted to go ahead and stick my foot in where we're talking right now, but you can synonymize that. And instead of just unreliable, you can say it's unstable. And if you find that a little pushy, get into the real heart of it, it's unpredictable. It's unpredictable whether you are 6th grade educated pseudo-American native passing yourself off as Madam Cherokee Maggie down in a house trailer, or if you have an MBA from Harvard and you are working at Solomon Brothers giving out advice to big trust. Well, I shouldn't throw in the trust funds because they will kill the brokers. That's kind of an inside. That is, you can't fool around with certain aspects of the conspiracy of life itself. But big-time brokers all dressed up, not in house trailers, and their advice, the ability they have to predict the future, is at best as reliable as Madam Cherokee Maggie down in the house trailer. So you could look at the secondary world. I just wanted you to see all the way from saying it is unreliable, which it is, but that is not a pejorative statement having to do with the institutions of life or of life itself. It is just a somewhat Alabama synonym to work your way up to the point that it's unpredictable. And you just have to face it. Anybody does. Life is unpredictable. The secondary world. The primary is not. The primary is easy to predict. You're born and you die. There it is. You can quote me on that. Money back guarantee. If you heard me, that is your fate. That's it. Well, see, I'm already half right. You were born, you have to admit, that son of a bitch. How do you... Did you see he just said that? He just like that. He just looked at me, even through the miracle of cable. You're born and you die. I'm already half right. That's better than most financial advisors do. I'm already half right. The other half, of course, you know I'm right all the way. You just don't want to think about the other half because everyone, if you're ordinary, you think, well, perhaps not. Perhaps I will be the exception. Perhaps life will go, he's had it so hard already. Nah, we don't. Life is unreliable, not in a negative sense. And then if you can work your way up just a little bit, it is unpredictable. It is if you are a soothsayer, if you're an astrologer, if you're selling numbers in a dream book, if you're a financial advisor, if you're a priest, if you're a psychiatrist, if you're in the world of academia. You have to be ordinary to have any faith in anyone else's predictions, which can be proven. The more educated you are, the easier it is to say, come on, you know that's not true. You can say that to an economist. Get a few drinks in him. If he's telling about his predictions, and well, as a matter of fact, they interviewed me this afternoon, and I was just telling the local station. Get a few drinks in the man if he's fairly decent, and say, come on, you know that whole thing's a bunch of horse crap. He'll go, well, yeah, but Jesus, I spent 10 years, we all got to make a living. What do you do? And then you have to say something that's bad. Well, I'm an attorney. And he'll go, hey, don't pick on me. Or I'm a priest or whatever. Everyone knows at a certain level that the secondary world is unpredictable. You cannot predict it, forget it. But then as soon as you go, yeah, that's true. And if you're ordinary, you do forget it. What? You forget that. That's what you forget because you have to. And the reason is I was trying to get you to consider in, at least verbally and energy-wise, a slightly different light, a newer light, was what I brought up last time, and then Kyrie picked up on again in the papers tonight, is that once you understand that the secondary world, from beginning to end, to use a comparison, which is always necessary, not just proper, necessary, if you're talking, that the secondary world of man is, compared to a destination, is a journey. And several of them tonight, Kyrie was pointing out, thrown all through here, that in that kind of sense, you would say that destinations are always full, they're complete. Whereas journeys are always hungry. Destinations never move, was another one, which is why man must be on a journey. Because if the secondary world was absolutely comparable to the primary, as we've been calling it, it would be a dead end. Because you would eat, you'd be full, and that'd be it. Which, of course, even at the primary, does not happen over the range of your lifetime, but in the immediate context of the immediacy, don't the redundancy library write me? But in that kind of sense, if you do eat and you get full, that is the end of it for the foreseeable future. If your body could think and talk, if your digestive system, if just the physical primary level of your body could talk, and you could speak to it, once it eats, if you're just ordinarily sane, and you eat enough and you get full, and you ask the body, how do you feel now, vis-a-vis the idea of destinations and journeys, the body can make rude noises, and its answer is, its response is saying, I have arrived. No more. That is, I've reached the destination. I am full. All right. If you were suffering from the Albanian horns, and if you're again fairly sane, and you engage in the horizontal boogie, and you get through, and we could slip into your mind and say, you just got through. You hadn't even got time to reach for a cigarette and say, would you like to go again? Assuming you're not a 15-year-old boy. You would go, well, no more for me right now. That is, I'm full. I am satisfied. Well, we only hear laughter from people who have been 15-year-old boys and still remember it and think, which for those of you nature lovers, I hate to give you I understand that there's some people that believe the knot holes in trees are some natural phenomenon. At any rate, if the primary level could speak, straighten out, people. If the primary world could speak, it would be speaking in terms of destinations. I mean, that's surely plain enough. You eat until you're full. And of course, we all know that you're going to be hungry again later sometime. But right then, if the body could speak inside the context that we're using of journeys and destinations, it doesn't want any more. That's it. I am full right now, that's it. And in a sense, since the primary world does not deal in time, I'm having to twist it, but some of you, if you're good, you can follow up with now. It would say, in a sense, I'm full, and if you said, you mean you never want to eat again? If it had to take that dichotomous choice, do I want to eat some more now, or will I ever eat again? The answer is, no, I'll never eat again then. That is, I'm not going to eat more now, so if that's my choice, I've got to either eat some more now, or you won't ever feed me again. Screw it. This is it. I have reached the destination. I'm not going to eat anymore. It would be detrimental, or at least deleterious to my physical primary world and health. So everything in the primary world is a matter of destination. You eat to get to the destination. You eat to get full. You go inside out of the cold. If you got a house or a cave, you go inside to get warm. And they got the fire. And you move up to the place that they got the fire until you get warm. You don't go any further. Once you get to the point that you are warm, that's the destination. And again, if we could have it both ways, and I jumped into your psyche and said, wait a minute. You're warm now, but are you going to say that's it? You're just going to sit there and never move again. It could get cold. The fire could go down. Tomorrow it could be colder. And trying to play that kind of game to the primary world, if it were conscious and talked in that sense, trying to play what if, the primary world would laugh at you if it could talk, or strangle you, or leave. It's meaningless. But if you did push it and say, well, don't you understand? You can't say this is a destination just because you got close enough to the fire and you're warm now. Don't say that's it, which it is saying that's it. By behavior, not talk. You're saying that is it. I'm going as far as I'm going. The same way the body eating. It eats and there's some left on your plate. But if you try to say, well, come on, eat some more. It has shown by behavior, not theory, not talk. It has shown by the only way that the primary world ordinarily talks, notwithstanding my stories here, it talks by behavior. It has reached the destination. That's why it quit eating. And it doesn't care if you point forever. It's like a dog. Dog is not the greatest example in the world, perhaps, but a primary animal, and it leaves some food, and you go and you point like, huh? Go try that with a tiger or a lion that leaves some food left over there, and you go, huh? Their children starving in Alabama. Now, lion think, what? And you go, huh? Try to make it feel ashamed. I wouldn't, do my finger too close to the lion. Huh? The primary world deals in destination. The secondary world deals in anything but. Because, comparably speaking, if we tried to move the former world into the latter, if there was such a thing as success, as in the primary world, as my example, that you eat until the point that you're full, and that is success. It's not conditional. It is not relative. There are no shades. Again, just assuming you're sane. We're not talking about anybody with so-called eating disorders and etc. The ordinary person, sane middle class, they eat until they reach the destination of being full. They get inside and they get close enough to the fire, if they're cold, until they reach the destination of them being warm. Same thing with sex, same thing with sleep. That they have reached the destination. That is success. But then the secondary world keeps being driven by the beautiful combination that there is no such thing profitably, healthfully, as success, and yet being driven by it telling itself that it is on the way to a known destination. Because if we took all this and some ordinary mind followed these last 15 minutes or last 15 years or 15 months, and they said, all right, I follow that, they would still have to admit this, that at the ordinary level, a man would not do anything unless he believed at the secondary level, unless it was wired in. I say belief, not in any sort of imposed environmental learned sense. It is as much a part of the human nervous system as it is the desire to eat when hungry. But it is the belief, I'm just going to make it easy, that the secondary world does lead somewhere, can lead somewhere, should lead somewhere, or else why would you try? The body will lead at the primary world, at the primary level, again, if you're sane, because it knows that I am going to succeed. There is a stack of pancakes or whatever it is. I know some of you liked the one the other day about, according to legend in one place, when in times of real desperation, this one guy would eat vegetables and think rationally. The primary world, if it was just you, in the primary sense, looks at food when it's hungry, and it knows that success is only a few bites away. The destination, there is success. By the same token, if there was such a thing, the secondary world must operate on the basis, while knowing otherwise, operate on the basis that what I am attempting to do in the secondary world, through my avocation, through my profession, through my hobbies, through my intellectual interests, through my dreams, that it is possible. It's either possible, it's probable, it should be true, that I will succeed. Not so. But the beauty of the engine is, the beauty of that kind of reciprocal engine is, it's not possible, and yet you've got to believe it is. It's not possible, and yet you've got to believe it is, and it's not possible because if it was, the engine would stop. In other words, all secondary affairs are destined with a smile. Chemically, not psychologically, electrically, chemically. By the greater laws of physics in a three-dimensional world, all secondary activities are fated not to be successful, not to be completed. Secondary journeys will not turn into destinations. If they did, they would be deadly, because no one would get up. The obvious old example again, you literally, the secondary world, you would not get up in the morning if you were not starving to death, and even if you wake up hungry. In this day and time, the destination for hunger is what? 20 steps away in the kitchen? So you would not To say you get up, you might physically get up, but to get up, take a shower, put on a suit and a tie, and strangle yourself with a noose if you're a man, get in a car, drive 4 or 5 hours, get into the so-called rat race, unless there was this idea that's going somewhere. That if an evil genie, the spirit of Ibsen or Goethe, or even a Gorder, jumped out and said, why in the hell, why are you getting up out of that nice warm bed? You've got a house here paid for, your condo's paid for, you've got a car, why is it you're going to work, and I know, I've been watching you, you're on the verge of trading, you got the car paid for, the last payment 2 months ago, yeah, and I know, I've been watching, I'm not a fool. You know, being a German, the Goethe can get kind of pushy and say, even the spirit, and say, I know you're considering trading in that car, and you just got out of debt. We can all make a joke about that, it's been done throughout history, but it's not funny. And it is not subject to any sort of ordinary level of criticism. Good night on cable. Fill in the rest yourself. I did the dots. Just put the lines together and you'll be fine. If not, we'll have another bout next time of exercise for the angry. You want to try that again? In the private sector, in the super private sector. Some of you with good ears know that I have hit this several times, to say the least, but it is the beauty, the efficiency, and it's not because you're stupid, it's because that the brain is wired up in such a dichotomous, polarized way that this kind of thing is almost impossible to remember. But it is the efficiency of things being arranged in such a way that a man must believe, everybody, not psychological, not sociological, that the primary world is run off of the kind of machinery, physical machinery, that it goes nowhere specifically. That is, it does not go to a destination. That the intellectual world, anything that you put in there besides the basic primary needs to survive, anything other than that has no destination. That is, it cannot get there. If you got there, it would be deadly, which is why no institutions can fulfill their promise. They cannot. The churches cannot fulfill what they say. Prisons cannot fulfill their stated purpose. They would be suicidal. They would go out of business. A human cannot at the secondary level. So all secondary efforts, all interests, all hobbies, anything that man does singularly is a journey, cannot come to its own stated. It's not up to us to decide, you see, it's not my judgment, but they cannot succeed. If you get rich, you will not get what you wanted. If you become famous, you will not get what you wanted. And I don't mean, as you know by now, that is not any form of moral judgment or some kind of retelling of some religious principle, because I can get more specific. It's just whatever you do in the secondary world is never absolutely satisfying. If you start trying to resculpture your body, we're not talking about primarily, but we're talking about now on the sake of so-called vanity. You can lose weight and it's never enough. If it was not, we're not talking about for physical purposes. Or if you start putting on muscle, it's never enough. If you get a nose job, then you got to have an ear job. And it's not because that something's wrong with vanity or wealth or fame, but then for somebody else or for the person himself to begin to feel guilty or begin to feel stupid. I like the person that wrote tonight that if there's nothing to be ashamed of being ordinary, they won't know why they felt ashamed. Glad we don't have time to go into it. But the person itself, you don't need somebody else to criticize you, although sometimes it helps. I know a lot of people enjoy that, but be that as it may. That even yourself, you can find yourself criticizing, why am I doing this? What kind of idiot am I? Well, you're an alive idiot. You're an ordinary idiot. Because all you're saying is, I am trying to do something, and I'm apparently succeeding, or I got it within my grasp, or I do have it in my grasp. I wanted $1 million, I got $1 million. I've had $1 million now for hell, nearly a week. Why is it now I say, all right, Martha, I'm going to have to leave again. We're going to have to invest everything. Call my broker and have my gun handy, because I've decided if I don't get $2 million, we're all done for. And every now and then a man can apparently come to his senses and go, what am I doing? And they write poetry sometimes about it between calls to their brokers and between going back to the regular level of sanity. But they muse on it. There's several books I can think of in the Bible and chapters in the Quran, whole things about people evidently amusing about life is so strange and ephemeral. Why are we chasing fools go? Because you're alive. At least I didn't say because you're a fool, see. But men do that to themselves. They'll say, what kind of fool am I? Which I was hoping, no offense, that song went into the ground with Sammy Davis Jr., but even Solomon, I don't think he had the tune down yet, but vanity, vanity, all is vanity, and all they're saying is secondary life is some kind of farce. Secondary life is a secondary life. The intellectual world is a world of journey, not destination. But the beauty I was trying to get you to see again, that I know, even though some of you can do it periodically, the difficulty, because it is arranged in such a way that you can't see it. It's the ultimate carrot and the stick, because not only do you see that you do not see that life is holding out the stick behind you and you got the carrot, and no matter how you move, you can't get it. Not only that, you don't even see in 3 dimensions. You don't realize it's even possible, which is what brings it down to the point that I was trying to point towards one more time, that life, you have to, makes man believe. You're wired up to believe, to accept, to operate on the premise, the basis, that the secondary world does lead, or can lead, should lead. Remember, I gave you 3 choices. Of course, when you're good, you know that 3 choices is the same thing as what? 1! That it could, should, can, all secondary activities lead to some fulfillment. That is possible, which is one of the great things about history, because history can tell stories that it was possible and somebody did it. That's always good. It's like it was life's original form of advertising. And I hope life gives me credit. Notice, life, I did not say false advertising. I just said advertising. Because an intelligent man can fill in his own adjectives. But that's what history is. As long as it's there, they can say, yes, he succeeded. A man fulfilled his secondary aim, was happy as hell. Well, I'd like to hear that in person. Well, he's dead. But hell, he's a famous dead person. They wrote it all up. Hadn't you read about it? His name was, Muhammad or Buddha or John D. Rockefeller Sr. We're talking about serious famous people. And they wanted to get rich, they wanted to get powerful, and they made it, and they said they were happy. Solomon said, right, well, could I speak to him? Well, hell, he's dead. But look right here, it says so in this book. It said he was happy. It said he got real famous and got happy. He said it was really worthwhile, and he encouraged everybody else. You too should invest in some sort of mail order business, and you could retire and just work on weekends. Or you too, buy my course, and you can get all the property you want with no money down and never pay anything, and leave town and change your name, or however you do it. And you say, well, where is this man? I want to speak to him. Well, he died last week, but he left this course. You can get his course. The beauty. Back again so I can stop this. It makes everyone, you're not dumb, you're not stupid, you're alive. You got no way out to start with. That you believe that the secondary world, anything that you do as a human, under whatever guise, whether it seems to be a spiritual quest, an intellectual quest, a striving to be rich, to be famous, whatever it is, there is built into the secondary world the unavoidable, just acceptance. You don't analyze it, that it is possible, it can happen, it should happen, but it is possible to get somewhere with this. That you want to be rich, you want to be famous, whatever, you want to have a #1 record just once in your life. That it's possible, because you look around and somebody else has done it. And you think, oh, so there are happy people. In fact, I went to school with that guy. I mean, there was a one-shot deal. The band broke up after that. But they had the #1 record in this country at one time. They were hot as hell for 2 or 3 weeks or months. I'll settle for that, because I know that would make me happy. It is built in. But it is not true, because all you got to do is get there. Still, if you're relatively sane, life gives you a new story. But we've been through enough examples. I don't have to make them up. It's not social criticism. You can get that which you thought you wanted. You got the $1 million. You got the new car, the Corvette, whatever it was. And a week later, Somebody comes to see you. They say, God, boy, I envy you that new Corvette. You know, as hard as you work for that, you really deserve it. And you're already, if you're sane and ordinary, you listen to all that and you take their compliments, and you're already biting your lower lip, though. Maybe they'll say, what's wrong? You don't like it? You go, well, it's not so much I don't like it. And of course, you can apparently be whining now and talking about cars, but you're not. What you're doing is whining and talking about, I'm alive. It is built into the substance, the operational dynamics of the secondary world that you believe, everyone does, you accept that it's possible to reach actual destinations. And it's not. Or if you do reach them along the way, which people, of course, do, somebody can get a car and they saved up for it. At least you try to weasel your way out of this one, and you shouldn't be trying to, but a person could save up, work real hard, and get a Corvette and get it, and not get upset by it. But what would happen if they're sane and ordinary? They simply apply their interest, go somewhere else. If they work hard and save up and buy this real expensive car, and it's not really all what they thought. They just simply, it's not the fault of the car, it's not the fault of them, it's the nature of the secondary world. And it does seem, if you want just a nice little example, happens in people's life, it can seem, well, hey, he did reach a destination, but what happened? Let's say that you see the same person a year later and they still got the Corvette. So that you can say, wait a minute, then it wasn't true. He did reach a destination. Yeah, he did. He lost interest in it. And you say, I'm kind of surprised. I mean, as hard as you work for that car and you're always doing something active, it's been a year since you had the car. What do you think? Maybe he says, oh, the car. Well, that's all right, I guess. And you think, now somebody reached a destination. Yeah, he lost interest. But if he's still sane, you can say, well, you used to always be talking about cars all the time. You mean you hadn't bought a new one, or you're not saving up now for a Ferrari or something? He goes, no, I got interested in something else. I have taken up investing in the stock market. But do you see that within little individual trips, little individual efforts in one man's life, just exactly what I'm saying, can apparently come to pass, which I said can't, as a rule. That you can apparently turn a journey into a destination in your life, such as the car I'm using. But what happens? I'm giving the prime example. You hear the reality of it. Is exactly what I'd already predicted or described to you. If you do turn a journey into a destination, that is, you do seem to succeed in what you tried. Succeed! That is, you got to the point that you did what you said you wanted to do, got the car in this case, and then what I'm describing did not come to pass. That you got there and you were satisfied. You worked, you saved, and you bought that Corvette, and regardless of what I just said, a year later you're still driving it. You're not all upset, you're no longer looking at brochures, you're no longer saving up for any kind of car. You don't hear me? Yeah, it sounded like I was wrong. That it does happen. Yeah, other than this fact, I'm exactly right. That destination, that journey, by reaching a destination, died. But if you're still sane, it simply got applied somewhere else. I gave up cars. Well, I mean, cars all right. I don't mean that. I still like the car and all that. But, hey, I have never had more fun. I thought I had fun. You remember when I got this car that first day? I took that thing way out on a deserted highway. And just like I'd been reading, that son of a bitch would do 160. I thought that was fun. You know what fun is now? I take my pay. Sometimes I don't even save the rent. I don't even save my mortgage payments on the condo. And I'll call my broker, and sometimes I'll just close my eyes or something. I'll say, what's hot? That's the thrill. I don't even know whether I'm going to survive next week. I don't even know if I'm going to have gas. He has now picked out a new journey. Because within the secondary world, if you do, even individually in your lifetime, if a journey turns into a destination, it is dead. For all intents and purposes. And if you're still sane, you simply apply it somewhere else. The energy goes somewhere else and you take up a new journey. But in toto, is what I was trying to get you to see, that the very criticism, social, religious, moralistic, nationalistic, religiously, every kind of criticism that man makes one another, from one group to another, to himself, are on the basis that the journeys that people have proclaimed as a nation, as a race, as a religion, as an institution, that the people are not succeeding. Well, hey, shoot me in the head with a hatchet. Boy, talk about an astute historical observer. You mean to, wait a minute, sir, I want to make sure I got this straight. You mean you found a group of people or an institution that has not reached, no, let me get that has not fulfilled or reached its stated aim? Are you saying that? Have you got the, I assume I've made my point. Because if you can find one who has an institution, a race, but an institution, but now you must know what I mean. Any group, something more than one person. There seems to be an institution. It's some form of manifestation of civilization, the body politic, economic forms, systems. Any institution that you found, we're back to the beauty of how the engine runs, if you found an institution that's fulfilled its aim, you wouldn't have found it. You understand? You can find its tombstone, you can find its history, but you're not going to find anything viable because it's dead. If it's alive, which is my little sarcastic scene there, for somebody to say, wait a minute, I have studied, I majored. Now you may not believe this. I started out in philosophy, and the more I thought about it and the nature of life and looking back over history, having to take some undergraduate courses in history, I thought, no. And believe it or not, I switched over. You're not going to believe this. I mean, you used to know me and you won't believe. I majored and graduated in theology because I decided there is the proper place to study the history of man. Took me 12 years, and of course I got no interest. I'm not fixing to try and become a priest or, But here, I studied, getting there in the heart of it. Ended up in Harvard. Did a little work over in Cambridge. And you know what I have seen, not just Christianity, assuming it was a Christian talking. I have studied now many courses in comparative religion. And did you know that there is not one known religion, anything resembling a major religion on this planet throughout the history of man that has ever succeeded at what it's done? Wait a minute, I'm speechless again. You mean it only took you 12 years of study to come to this gigantic insight? My breath is taken away. Of course, it shows I had almost no breath to start with. That it took this man only 12 years to figure out that a human institution, in this case religion, has not by God fulfilled its promise. Well, let's see then. I don't even have to ask you what religion you're talking about because I know this, you're talking about a religion, an institution that is still alive and operating. Do you see the beauty? It's where I was trying to stop. You've got to believe. It's already built in. When I say you got to, you don't have to adopt it. You have got to believe you're operating on the basis that the secondary world can go somewhere, that a journey can become a destination, and then everyone criticizes themselves, one another, part of the energy. It's like filling up your gas tank, collectively and individually, by going, things are not working out exactly as we thought they were. I started out and I wanted to go from Topeka to Tulsa. And it seemed like I'm no closer. And sometimes I look around and hell, I'm in Davenport. And once I thought I was in Brussels. Brussels! But hey, I thought that was dumb. I started out with another guy, Wichita. You know the last time I heard from him? He was in Anchorage saying, I'm closing in on it. It is part of the energy. It is part of the fueling mechanism of the secondary world to believe, having no choice, to believe that the journey can turn into a destination, which if it did, all it's turned into is a graveyard. That it cannot. Therefore, all criticism of yourself, if you're a rebel, if you've got some ability to think in any individual, non-collective way, all criticism of the secondary world, whether it be self-directed or anyone else, is, I don't know. We've already said all the dirty, insulting things we can about ourselves. Fill it in. Makes you the poster boy for pea brains. But of course, if you're ordinary, you understand it simply adds to the fuel supply. And just make sure that regardless of what OPEC does, we will not be running short of the necessary fuel to propel civilization. No, sir. They may cut down drastically on the number of tankers, the amount of oil that they pump and send over here, but by God, as long as we've got people like you and I to find fault, to criticize rationally, to be righteously indignant, fuck them Arabs. We don't need the oil. we got our criticism. We got our justifiable criticism. Am I right? Yeah, you're right. Here it is, not only the P-Brain choir, but the proper director. If we're all going to say, are we right? Yes, we be right. Was that a good place to end even for... I'm not going to try to get to the car roots tonight. I'm sorry for you people that... There were two, I meant to, but there were two I just wanted to reread. Wasn't the reader's fault. I didn't obviously put in or talk to them about the certain kind of inflection. There was nothing that terribly wrong or I would have stopped it. One of them, this one, there really wasn't anything wrong. I just wanted to, I was really going to say something about it and use it, but since I've taken so much time, I won't, but I just want to reread it. It was a proverb update again, although it did give you a warning. And it went, men never repent having eaten too little, nor having too stupid been. The proverb, it's been everywhere. I just sort of wrapped it up. But it is, and we're talking about an ordinary proverb, the kind of thing that you would find in a little blue book of free proverbs you get in a box of cereal or something. But it is so old that it is not just anonymous, it's anonymous son of, I think. But it says things that the gist of it, what it's saying is no wise man, no good man, no intelligent man has ever regretted having eaten too little. That you do not hear people say that. It's always people, I overdid it. Men never repent having eaten too little, nor having too stupid been. Of course, the last part is my part. I assume you understand that you can hear the validities why it's an ancient proverb, or why it's a proverb, is that there is a useful, at the collective level, for the last level, a useful message, a useful piece of energy in saying men do not regret, do not apologize for having eaten too little. But notice that kind of information, like everything else, doesn't stop people from overeating. But it is pointing out a useful piece of primary information. That is, that if you do not go past the point of your destination, you won't regret it. Not at least in the same way as you would overshooting the destination. That simply, if you were again sane and for whatever reason that you got distracted and you overate, you just didn't mean to, you're eating so fast, and you ate more than the physical body wanted to, that is what you'll regret. Comparably speaking to having not gone past that point. That doesn't mean, of course, that a reasonable man should always go hungry, but if it comes down to the point of I either got just before the destination or I went past it, the proverb is saying that a wise man, just an ordinary, intelligent man, would prefer not to overeat. Would not prefer not to overeat as to having overate. So, back to the first part of my version of the wrap-up of that old proverb, men never repent having eaten too little, comma, and now my part, nor having too stupid been. Let me just quickly ask you, do you hear people, although if you take the last part and you're already listening a certain way, you could go, oh, no, that should still be hang true for the first part. Well. How often do you hear people regret, in any form, having been too stupid once you understand what stupid is? I'll answer for you since we're in a hurry. Never! Which doesn't sound right at first if you were falling into the comparison, because the first part, ordinary people would agree to, is why it's still a proverb. That yes, you're right. That an ordinary wise person, including me, if I was at my best wits, I would not regret having eaten too little, whereas you're correct. I will regret having overdone it. But now wait a minute, that second part that you threw in does not wash with the rest of it. Because I do regret when I do something dumb. I'm not going to bother to answer that anymore. Kyrute and I said our piece. All right, the one that I did just want to reread. Joe did a wonderful job, but I didn't know, I should have done it better. It went like this. It having to do, we're still throughout all these about bus travel. And some of them were stretched out and some were together. In fact, the one right before it, let me read, and Kyrut said, in part, through self-reference, the universal makes journeys appear to actually go somewhere. And then the next one I wanted to reread was the strange metaphysics of bus travel. That is, once on board, the dumb will wear their ticket out. Would you care now to jump back to the one I just read? Men never repent from having eaten too little or having too dumb been. The strange metaphysics of bus travel. Once on board, the dumb, the ordinary, will wear their ticket out. It's not just the last part, may I suggest. Once on board. Think about it. Once on board. And of course, everyone ends up on board, but then you've got to be aware of it in some way to say anything. But once on board, the ordinary, that is everybody at the beginning. But the original, before I threw in the ordinary, just says the dumb. Once on board. Of course, once on board, everybody complains. If they're ordinary, on board, everybody complains. Unless they're a saint. If you're alive, you're on board. And if you're alive and on board, you're complaining. And you're dumb. That is, you're ordinary. You're complaining that there is something in life you don't like. I mean, it's obviously if you're ordinary. I mean, look at all the injustice, the insanity, may I say, the dumbness, in fact. So everybody sees that, life is not perfect. How many years did it take you to figure that out, sir? Oh, well, we've already been through that. So everyone has a righteous, reasonable complaint once they're alive and on board. And you can't complain until you're on board. There was a Kyrut tonight, if you didn't follow it, about a inner womb little episode of this kid that was trying to talk to his own partner, and he couldn't find him because he didn't realize yet that he was too young to have a self, so he couldn't talk to himself. But when he's old enough to have a self, he's on board. And as soon as you're on board, you have got the polar base, the dichotomous turn of mind, the active flow of electrochemical energy in the brain, to immediately look around and think, there isn't around. I am on a bus, and I don't like it. And after that, you just got to be hard up for conversation and say, well, that's interesting, sir. What is it specifically you don't like? Well, name it. I don't like the seats. I wouldn't like the seats if you changed the covering. I don't like the height here in the aisle. I don't like where the aisle is. Is there anything else? How long do you have? I don't like the people around me. Well, there's no one sitting next to you. Well, if there was, I wouldn't like them. That is being on the bus. That is being alive. That is, you're on a journey. The destinations are like full. Journeys are always hungry. They're never completed. And so if you're on the bus and you're ordinary, you're never satisfied. The bus always sucks. If you were born on a high-class bus, if you were born and the day that you popped out, your father handed you a passbook with $1 million in it, as opposed to most ordinary people that you were born in debt. That your father looked at you and thought, you little rascal, I hope you do all right, but damn, do you realize already you've cost me $600 in doctor fees that I might have to pay sometime if they catch me? So you're born, if you're ordinary, you're born in debt, and you don't like it. But if you're born rich, do you like it? No. Because you're not rich enough. That's the secondary world. So if you're on the bus, you're not satisfied. And you complain, which is part of the basis of Kyrut and I poking fun at being serious and complaining at life. It's necessary for ordinary people. But if you're on the bus and ordinary, you're going to complain. Whether you're rich, poor, no matter what part of the bus you think you're sitting on, you're going to bitch about it. If you're alive and sane. So, it's a fait accompli, an established fact, a deed done, a done deed if you see it, a job completed, that if you're alive and on the bus, you don't like it. Now back to the Kyrut, that there was a little more to it than just the first and last part. It's a combination offer. Regardless of the fact that the Honorable Roy A. Cuff died and we'll have to sing the part ourselves. Too obscure, right? It's the combination of the well. Once on board, the dumb wear their ticket out. Once on board, once alive, on the bus, got a secondary world flowing, everybody complains. Once on board, now you got your ticket. I mean, you're alive and you're bitching. So that proves you got a ticket. Nobody's going to come around. Life, notice, does not come around and say, prove you're alive. I mean, that's a little much. It's enough that it keeps telling you, roll over, you're on bottom again. But it doesn't ever poke you and say, well, before you roll over, are you alive? Life doesn't ask. So you're alive, you don't like it, and you bitch about it, if you're ordinary. But you don't just bitch about it. You wear your goddamn ticket out. You understand? It's back to, some of you liked, apparently a few hours ago, last time we met, that I point out the great attraction that death has. And people don't know why. Because it is the closest thing that the mind can conceive of as being a destination. This is not that far removed. Once on board, the dumb wear their ticket out. It's like once on board and complaining is one thing. Complaining about being alive. But they wear it out. Yeah, I'm mad about being alive, yeah. There was another Kairos tonight that I can't lay my hands on that didn't seem to get much of a reaction because I guess it was too close to being a blank wall in your face. But with some guy, with no sorehead, said that after looking around and even seeing how people are now, he figured, even how they are now, that he figured if men and somebody really knew what was going on, they would then be really pissed. They began to see any more connection. Once on board, the dumb will wear their ticket out. That here you are, you're alive, you're pissed off about it to varying degrees. Yeah. And of course, an ordinary intelligent person wouldn't want to say it that way. I'm just being crude and direct and in your mouth with it. But an ordinary person said, well, no, I'm not satisfied because I have yet to reach a state of perfection. Have you? Hey, I ain't here on a quiz show. What's the prize? Yes, I'm struggling to get somewhere. I'm not completely satisfied. In other words, you're pissed. Well, I wouldn't want to put it that way. Put it in the way you want to. Yes, I'm dissatisfied. We got that established. If you're alive and sane and ordinary, you're dissatisfied. Yes. Once on board, the dumb will wear their ticket out. Well, yes, I am alive and dissatisfied. But the more you're alive and ordinary, and well, at least up to date, not only would a man be saying, if he knew what to say, he would not only be saying, yes, I'm alive and dissatisfied, but I'm alive and really dissatisfied and I want somebody to know about it. We just established it. I don't think you heard me. Well, he may think that, but just to show him I did, I'll conclude by reading this new Kairos I brought. It says, once on board, the dumb will wear their ticket out. Good night.